Good evening, a special edition of the programme to bring you the last Grand Prix of the season live from Las Vegas. Now, this is the race that will decide the 1981 World Drivers' Championship, and it's the closest title race for years. This is how it stands as we go into the race. 3 men involved, really. Remember, it's 9 points for a win, and at the moment just 1 point separates Carlos Reutemann of Argentina and the Brazilian Nelson Piquet. And still in contention is the Frenchman Jacques Laffite. Well, here's their form to date. Actually, Piquet has won the most races, 3. The other 2 contenders have won 2 apiece. Now, Reutemann will become champion as long as he finishes ahead of his rival Piquet. Piquet must score at least 1 more point than Reutemann to take the title. As for Laffite, well, he must finish first or second today to stand any chance at all of the championship. And then it would all become quite complicated, and those previous first and second places would come into play. We'll explain that a little later if necessary. After practice, it really looks like a 2-horse race. The championship leader, Reutemann, is in pole position in the Williams alongside last year's champion, Alain Jones. Piquet in the Brabham is on the 2nd row. He was 4th fastest. And Laffite in the Ligier is miles back on the 6th row, only 12th fastest in practice. Well, that's the position then. 75 laps of the new Las Vegas track coming up live now, so we can join our commentators James Hunt and Murray Walker.
Welcome to the blue skies and the blazing sunshine of Las Vegas for the championship-deciding last Grand Prix of 1981. Well, the preliminary festivities are over. We've had the inaugural parade with its high-stepping, baton-twirling majorettes. The balloons have been released. Tom Jones has done a victory lap in a semi-genuine chariot. The circuit has been christened in champagne. The skydivers have dived to deliver the race flags. And Paul Newman, the race director, yes, the Paul Newman, a very successful racing driver himself, has addressed the 45,000-strong crowd in their $250 seats. Yes, that's Las Vegas for you. And now all is ready for that vital 75-lap, 170-mile race around this brand spanking new 14-turn circuit for the first ever Caesars Palace Grand Prix. And there, in pole position, the man who is leading the World Championship, and I have never seen him as relaxed and cheerful as he is, Carlos Reutemann. Alongside him, the reigning world champion, Alain Jones, driving in what is almost certain to be his last Grand Prix, and meaning, I may tell you, to win it. Nevertheless, Carlos Reutemann, his teammate, is doing the same thing, intending to win, as is Villeneuve, a tremendously strong 3rd position on the grid. There is Alain Prost, and we look down now as they go around the final warm-up lap before the start of the 75-lap race.
Well, away go the cars on this very tight, twisty, artificially made circuit, as we've said so many times, in the car park at Caesars Palace. They've managed to cram in a 2.2-mile track into no distance at all. That's an aerial shot we're getting now back to the cars. Most of the corners are 2nd and 3rd gear corners. They're very, very tight, but they open out quite widely. The average speed is just over 100 miles an hour in qualifying, so it's not too slow, the track. Coming round right-hander there, which is turn 3. A little kink after this that they go down. Down to double apex left-hander. This shot is from the roof of the hotel, looking down, which is, funnily enough, rather better than the grandstand seat. It's probably the best place to watch the race from. Get a terrific view from on top of the hotel or a room high up, whereas they've got terrific safety precautions here. They've got concrete walls all around the track, but it makes it a little bit difficult for spectators to see because, of course, the walls are taller than the cars. You don't actually see any walls there, but in the background there with those advertising signs. The cars, that's an example of how difficult it is to see over the walls. That looks like Alain Jones, no, that's Reutemann, just warming up his tires, giving it a little bit of a squirt around there, trying to get some temperature in the tires because they get stickier as they get hotter, and it's important to try and get them as warm as possible. There is a huge Argentinian influx here at Las Vegas. They've been coming in from all over the place, and Reutemann's getting terrific support. And as Murray said earlier, he's been in wonderfully relaxed form, really enjoying himself. He's been here a week and a half preparing for the race, and I've never seen him so relaxed. Nelson Piquet, just had a shot at him there, the 4th car in our picture, who's struggled a little bit in practice. He had trouble with a stiff neck from the G-forces, and he went to get a massage in the Caesar's Palace Hotel, and he got their expert masseur there who does all the boxers and things like that when they have the big fights. And the guy did him such a mischief that Piquet's stiff neck was all right, but he had bruises all the way down his back and was in quite considerable discomfort yesterday. In fact, had to go to a doctor for treatment to recover from his massage. So,
well, up they come to the grid now, and this start is going to be absolutely vital. There are 4 men in particular out of this 24-man entry going for 9 points for a win. Alan Jones, who is down in the championship, no chance of winning. Carlos Reutemann and Nelson Piquet, both of whom could, of course, as you well know, win. And Jacques Laffite, notwithstanding the fact that he's way down in 12th position on the grid, and he actually qualified in Patrick Tambay's car. Patrick Tambay, the man who's been fired from the team, and away they go. Look at Villeneuve. It's Alan Jones taking the lead. Villeneuve in 2nd position, and Villeneuve making all that he can out of the turbocharged Ferrari power, and thank heavens they have all got round that critical first corner safely, with Alan Jones, the Australian, in his last Grand Prix, leading as they surge through round turn 1, then away into 4th gear, round turn 2, the left-hander, down to the long sweeping right-hander at turn 3, and see the lead as Alain goes into turns 5 and 6, with Villeneuve in 2nd position. Now, Alan Jones is in a tremendously determined mood. His broken finger has mended, and there is Jariet's car out of the race already. The Ocella of Jean-Pierre Jariet, who qualified just in practice, and he's obviously had some sort of a problem at the start and is out of the race. Meantime, Alan Jones is very much in it. He has won 1 Grand Prix this year, and he said to me last night he dearly wanted, before he retired to his beloved farm in Australia, to win this, which could be the last Grand Prix of his career. Villeneuve 2nd, Prost is in 3rd position, Giacomelli is in 4th place, Carlos Reutemann is in 5th place. Right behind Carlos Reutemann is John Watson, who's actually got flu, and in 7th position it is Jacques Laffite.
Yes, Piquet's dropped back a bit since he was right behind Reutemann going into the first corner, so there was a little bit of a clutch of them, so he's obviously had a bit of trouble. Alan Jones drove a really wonderful first lap. He got straight into the groove, straight to the job, and once again is confirming the most magnificent form. It's a great shame that Alan's retiring. He's driven so well this year, as I've repeatedly said. To have only won 1 Grand Prix is daylight robbery, because he's been quite undoubtedly the outstanding Grand Prix driver of the season. Look at that huge lead he's built already. Of course, Villeneuve in the rather unmanageable Ferrari, probably doing his usual hold. There's Prost having a little bit of a go at Villeneuve, but it's such a big problem to pass that Ferrari, especially on a tight circuit like this. Just watch him accelerate away, and he's definitely holding Prost up. Giacomelli's watching for a gap as well.
Well, the question now is, where are the World Championship contenders? Carlos Reutemann is behind this battle for 2nd place between Gilles Villeneuve in the Ferrari, Alain Prost in the turbocharged Renault, and then Bruno Giacomelli in the rejuvenated Alfa Romeo, and Carlos Reutemann is therefore in 5th position. Reutemann in 5th place is the man who has got the best point situation in the World Championship at the moment, but what a battle for 2nd place. And what a wonderful lead Alan Jones has got on lap 2 out of 75 with Alain Prost. There's Jones, the leader, the race leader, Alan Jones, and coming into the pits is Elio De Angelis in the Lotus 87 on his 2nd lap, comes into the pits, whilst Alan Jones is now well away on his 3rd lap.
As Prost has just made it past Villeneuve, just squeezed by on the inside. I expect Prost will now probably pull away a bit. Giacomelli may have a little bit more trouble getting round Villeneuve. He hasn't got the power that Prost has got in his turbo Renault. But I should be interested to study the form of John Watson, who was just out of shot then, following that little battle. He's coming through. He was very quick in the warm-up this morning, and his car obviously running very well on full tanks. So expect Watson to be a very strong challenger in this race. Meanwhile, Jones is disappearing in the distance. Giacomelli has now got the problem of climbing over Villeneuve.
And Elio De Angelis has gone into the pits to change tyres already, as Bruno Giacomelli in 4th place, with behind him in 5th position John Watson, and then in 6th place, right up his exhaust pipe as it were, is Jacques Laffite, and in 7th place and out of the World Championship scoring at the moment is Carlos Reutemann. So that is significant. Neither Reutemann nor Piquet are in points-winning positions at the moment, whereas Jacques Laffite has fought his way up into 6th position, and that's Tambay. That is Patrick Tambay. And look at that shattered car. The whole of the front of the car has been torn off, and Tambay has very obviously hurt his left leg or his left ankle, and is sensibly hopping as fast as he can out of the danger area, which is where his Talbot-Matra car is now. This is lap 3 in this race. Patrick Tambay driving his last race for Talbot-Matra because he had been fired in favour of Eddie Cheever, the American who has been signed by Talbot for 1982. And we look again at the race leader, Alan Jones, on lap 4. Behind Alan Jones, this battle for 2nd place raging between Gilles Villeneuve in the turbocharged Ferrari. And just look at the way that Williams car is handling beautifully on the circuit. The very rigid suspension of today's cars is not nearly as much of a hindrance here at Las Vegas for this Caesars Palace Grand Prix as it has been at most of the previous Grand Prix, because this magnificently constructed new circuit is, if not bump-free, far less bumpy than the previous circuits in the Grand Prix series, as a result of which Alan Jones in the Williams and all the rest of the contenders can really put the power down. And as you see, Villeneuve now is about 5 seconds behind Jones. Prost is right with him. Giacomelli is right with, and Prost is, take no notice of that caption, because of course the battle is now Prost in 2nd place, and then Villeneuve and Giacomelli fighting for 3rd. Alan Jones leading. And on lap 5, it is Alan Jones leading Alain Prost in 2nd position. Gilles Villeneuve is 3rd. Bruno Giacomelli is in 4th place. In 5th position, it is Jacques Laffite, just ahead of John Watson in 6th place. 7th is Carlos Reutemann, and 8th is Nelson Piquet. So Reutemann and Piquet in 7th and 8th places out of the World Championship scores as Alan Jones completes another lap. And that is the end of lap 5 for Jones, with Prost behind him. Then quite a long gap. Look now for the battle for 3rd, and it is Villeneuve and Giacomelli, and see how Jacques Laffite is closing up. John Watson is behind Laffite, Reutemann is behind Watson, and this is lap 6.
Well, it's fantastic to see Laffite going so well, because he was really off form during qualifying. In fact, his teammate Patrick Tambay, who we've just seen fortunately get out of that horrific-looking wreck of a car we didn't see the crash, but the whole of the front of the car torn apart. It's nice to see that he was at least on one leg. But Laffite is really going well. Tambay was quicker than him in practice, both in his own car and in Jacques' car, and that's a very rare thing. That was Patrese fighting his way through there. But he's certainly getting it together in the race, and he's coming up through the field really aggressively. Alan Jones now with his lead consolidated, but he's not extending it as he was. Since Prost got past Villeneuve, Prost is at least holding him, and the dominance is no longer quite there. Villeneuve, of course, in the rather ill-handling Ferrari, is doing a rather usual job we've seen pretty frequently this year, holding other people up. There goes Villeneuve, there's Giacomelli still stuck behind him, with Laffite now up with the group, and seeing if he's going to be able to fight his way past.
And the gap between Alan Jones and Alain Prost is 6 seconds. The gap between Prost, who is in 2nd position, Villeneuve, who is 3rd, Giacomelli, who is 4th, is 6.4 seconds. And there is the 3rd place man, Gilles Villeneuve, winner at the Monaco Grand Prix earlier this year. Then he won in Spain afterwards in that memorable race when 5 cars crossed the line virtually together. And Bruno Giacomelli, the young Italian in the V12 Alfa Romeo, in fourth position, is keeping ahead of Jacques Laffite. But behind Laffite is John Watson in sixth position. That is Laffite that we're looking at now, third in the World Championship. And there is John Watson. In spite of this flu, when John Watson came up to the start point this morning, there was liquid pouring out of every pore in his body. He really has a very nasty bout of some kind of trouble. But Jacques Laffite is the man at the present moment that we're looking at on the right of your screen. Number 27 in the number 26 in the Talbot-Matra, 37 years old, and he has won this year in Austria and in Canada. He has 43 World Championship points, and if he can win this race, he can win the championship. Alan Jones, the leader. And as ever, we have, I believe, practically the whole of Australia watching us through Channel 9. And this, Australia, is your man, Alan Jones from Glenburn, Victoria. He's in terrific form. I had a long conversation with him last night. He vowed that he intended to win this race. He said the car was beautifully set up. There is one of his chief contenders, Jacques Laffite, who is in fifth position still. And Nelson Piquet is now in eighth position, still behind Carlos Reutemann, who is seventh. So the three World Championship contenders are, metaphorically speaking, in line astern on the circuit, with Laffite in fifth position, Watson right behind him, and there is Carlos Reutemann chased by Nelson Piquet. This is the World Championship leader, Carlos Reutemann, on his eighth lap, with Piquet right behind him.
Interesting thing with the Reutemann and Piquet situation is that as long as they're in the points, in point-scoring positions, which at the moment, of course, they're not, lying in 7th and 8th place, but that's unlikely to remain for the whole race. But as long as they're in point-scoring positions, whoever finishes in front of the other one wins the championship. So they've both got to beat each other. And, of course, they're now perfectly poised to do battle. There they are, absolutely. So I understand as Reutemann swinging through the snow on, Piquet right behind him.
Well, there is only 2.3 seconds, let me tell you, between Gilles Villeneuve, who is in third position, and John Watson, who is in sixth place. Alan Jones on his own in the lead on lap 9. Still in second position, Alain Prost, and we look at the Renault as Carlos Reutemann, seventh position, chasing John Watson, trying to keep ahead of Nelson Piquet. In fifth position, Jacques Laffite. There he is. Bruno Giacomelli in the red and white Alfa Romeo, the swarthy young Italian, ex-Formula 2 champion of Europe, ex-Formula 3 champion of Britain, ex-Formula Italia, and there is John Watson in the second of those two cars. Watson in sixth place. That is Reutemann, seventh. And we are now on lap 9 in this 75-lap race. 34 gear changes to the lap. 2,550 gear changes in this race. And we are watching Alan Jones. Now Reutemann. Do the drivers like the circuit? Yes, they do. Who are they? And that is Mario Andretti, who is coming up through the field then. And Mario Andretti is now in ninth position in the red and white Alfa Romeo, the man who has won one of his own World Championship races in America. He is an Italian-born American, has just had the bad news that he has lost the Indianapolis Grand Prix win of this year on a technicality. There is Peter War, the man who leads the Fittipaldi team, alongside Jabby Cronbach, the famous journalist, as the battle for seventh position continues to rage between the World Championship leader and the man who is second in the championship. Number 2, Reutemann. Number 5, Piquet. Behind them in ninth position, number 22, Mario Andretti.
Well, Reutemann probably won't be unhappy with the current situation in the race. I think he probably finds that Piquet is a little bit close for comfort, because he only needs to make one little slip on a corner or miss a gear, and Piquet can slip by. But Reutemann will undoubtedly, or should be, driving a pretty defensive race. because it's obviously essential that he finishes, that he doesn't hand over the championship on a plate to Piquet. And at the moment, he won't be worrying too much about Laffite, because Laffite's still got an awful lot to do to get up past the leaders. But Reutemann will just be driving to make no mistakes and keep his car in one piece, keep himself on the road, and let Piquet do the work. Piquet now is the man who's got to make the running.
And Piquet is not, in many ways, in much of a position to make the running. I asked him this morning how that back of his was. We're looking at Alan Jones, the race leader, on lap 11. Nelson Piquet said, fine, thank you, fine, but I noticed that when somebody patted his back later on, he winced, and I believe that he's in real pain as a result of that misplaced massage that he had yesterday. But, nevertheless, lap 11, race leader Alan Jones. Look for the gap now. René Arnoux has just come into the pits. Nigel Mansell, by the way, is in 10th position now. Nigel Mansell in the Lotus 87 is in 10th position, and on lap 11, the race leader, the race order is Alan Jones in the Williams, leading Alain Prost in the Renault. In 3rd position it is Gilles Villeneuve, just ahead of 4th place man Bruno Giacomelli. In 5th position it is Jacques Laffite, and now in 6th position it is Carlos Reutemann, so Reutemann is up into the points.
Villeneuve's doing a bad job, both for our entertainment point of view, for a race for the lead, and also for Jacques Laffite, because he's managed to let Jones get now 13 seconds over him. The Ferrari proving, as usual, almost impossible to pass with all that power down the straight. And Laffite, of course, needs to get on with the job. He wants to get by those cars and get after the leaders, Jones and Prost, because he's got to win or come second to do anything, stand any chance at all. There is Jacques Laffite, and he's looking really for a win, but of course he must be pretty frustrated at the moment with Villeneuve in front of him.
Some of these corners, of course, the drivers literally feel as though they are driving into a concrete tunnel because they can't see over them. They have to get their cornering line organised very carefully indeed to come out on the right line with the right revs. And we're looking now at the Ferrari of Gilles Villeneuve. Behind him, Bruno Giacomelli. Villeneuve in 3rd position. Giacomelli is in 4th place. And as they twist and turn their way across this sinuous circuit, 14 turns per lap, 75 laps in all, and the gap between Villeneuve, and Reutemann and Piquet and Andretti are all closing up. Now there's going to be a tremendous line of cars from 3rd to 8th around this circuit very shortly, and this could be a repetition of the Spanish Grand Prix situation where Gilles Villeneuve, with the tremendous power of the Ferrari, is able to put his foot down and get away on the few straight parts of the circuit, especially the parts around turns 11, 12, 13 and 14. But then the better handling cars of Bruno Giacomelli and all the others behind him can close up on the corners, and you're seeing that now. This is the 3rd and 4th place men, Villeneuve in the Ferrari, Giacomelli, and behind Giacomelli in 5th place it's Laffite.
Yes, it looks like a real problem for Giacomelli, because he's pretty aggressive. You see how close he's getting in the corners, but so far he hasn't really even looked like passing Villeneuve. Villeneuve's just squirting it away down the straight. And the Alfa has a pretty powerful engine as well. It's more powerful than the Cosworth-powered cars, so it looks to be really worrying. And as Murray rightly says, there's every chance we're going to get a big queue, which would, in a way, be rather a shame, with Jones and Prost out taking the benefit of the holding-up job that Villeneuve is inadvertently doing. There he goes. You see how Giacomelli closes up in the corner. Now the Ferrari stretches its lead with that power, so that Giacomelli is in no position to even think about trying to outbrake him. He's too far behind, closing up again in the corner. And down goes the power of the Ferrari, and away he goes again.
And the gap between the 3rd and 9th men, that is to say Gilles Villeneuve and Mario Andretti, is 4.5 seconds only. There is Andretti, number 22. I remind you that Alan Jones is leading, Prost is second. We are looking at the battle on lap 14 out of 75 for third and the subsequent places, with Bruno Giacomelli climbing all over the transverse gearbox of Villeneuve's Ferrari in his efforts to get through, unavailingly. Villeneuve, Giacomelli, Laffite and Watson. Reutemann is still out of the points. Carlos Reutemann is in 7th position, ahead of Nelson Piquet, 8th, out of the points, and there is 7th place man Reutemann. And a lot can still happen in this race, and it looked to me as though Jacques Laffite was taking a very, very tight line there. John Watson is now right behind the Ligier-Matra, and there is Reutemann in 7th position, followed by Piquet in 8th position. Mario Andretti not so far back in 9th place. There he is.
Yes, it's all warming up. Piquet is looking very close indeed to Reutemann. I suspect that he's forming up to have a go. But the battle, of course, the concertina effect has worked. They're all closing up. Yes, there goes Piquet, having a stab at Reutemann down the inside. He seemed to get inside him then, but Reutemann seemed to get back online. And Andretti was going pretty wide there around behind him.
Carlos Reutemann adopting the maxim of Marshal Pétain and the Maginot Line, they shall not pass. And they, in his case, is Nelson Piquet. And these are the two men who are leading the World Championship. There is the reigning World Champion, Alan Jones, closing up on and about to lap Marc Surer, the Swiss driver in Teddy Yip's Theodore car. And we should see now the difference between a very good driver, Marc Surer, and a very, very good driver, Alan Jones. And that is the difference. Alan Jones passes, and I will now give you the gap between Alan Jones, who is on his 16th lap now, in the lead, and the second place man, Alain Prost. And Alan Jones is leading by 10.4 seconds. 7th, Carlos Reutemann, number 2. 8th, Nelson Piquet, number 5. Ahead of them, Watson, who is 6th, Laffite, who is 5th, Giacomelli, who is 4th, and Villeneuve, who is 3rd, and there they all are together. Mario Andretti, now number 22, the oldest man in the race, closing up, and there is Eddie Cheever, obviously out of the race. Eddie Cheever walking away down pit lane, the tall, distinctive American who next year is driving for Talbot Ligier-Matra, and there, Carlos Reutemann again trying to get through and failing.
Yes, Piquet's really making his challenge now. He's got right up close behind Reutemann. He's starting some serious worrying tactics, but I don't think Reutemann's going to flat, because he knows what he has to do. He just keeps it cool, keeps it on line, lets Piquet do the work. It's very difficult to overtake on these tight circuits. They don't get quite enough space or get up enough speed to really, for the cars to get alongside each other. And the guy behind has really got to make up a couple of lengths under braking, which is no mean feat on these short braking distances. Villeneuve's train all following him. In fact, you can see that Reutemann, having to defend his position, has let a little bit of a gap grow in front of him. But of course, if he gets stuck in, that will soon close up again, because Villeneuve is really going a lot, probably a fair bit slower than the rest of these cars can go. And still Giacomelli is making no real impression and not really looking like he's going to stand a chance of passing.
8.3 seconds between Alan Jones in the lead and Prost, who is second. And I'm glad to say that Derek Warwick in the Toleman, who qualified for his first ever Grand Prix in the turbocharged British car with its Hart engine and its very new quick Pirelli tyres, is still in the running, as are Villeneuve, Giacomelli, Laffite, Watson, Reutemann, Piquet and Andretti in 3rd to 9th positions on lap 17. Lap 17, 75-lap race, and still the battle for 7th place continues between Reutemann, number 2 on the left, and Piquet, number 5 on the right.
Well, although both Reutemann and Piquet are out of the points at the moment, I think it's fairly safe to assume that if they both run healthily, there's bound to be 1 or 2 dropouts in front of them. And running in 7th and 8th place at this stage of the race, I think one can reasonably say that they are fighting over the championship, because Laffite is still stuck just a little bit further up the Villeneuve queue. So what Piquet is doing now is really, at the moment, in present circumstances, for the World Championship, and he's trying to get past Reutemann. Of course, one thing neither of them want to do, particularly Piquet, And Piquet, I think he's done it. Piquet's got him. Piquet's made it to Reutemann. Very, very well driven indeed. He played a waiting game. He pretended that he wasn't going to make an attempt, then nipped out, caught Reutemann a little bit unawares, and that now puts Piquet in a winning position for the World Championship. Now, Andretti is having a go, and he's passed Reutemann as well. Now, is Reutemann in trouble with his car, or is he just a bit shell-shocked, having seen Piquet go past? He looks quite healthy, but certainly a rather typical bit of driving by Reutemann. Is that the Ferrari?
That's Pironi. I think it's Didier Pironi from the quick look of him, and with Alan Jones still in the lead. And significantly, incidentally, Alan Jones is the only Goodyear tyre-shod runner who is in the first 6, although that will change no doubt shortly, because Piquet, having got past Reutemann, will now be tackling John Watson on his Michelin-shod Marlboro MP4, and the order now on lap 19 out of 75 as we look at the reigning world champion and race leader Alan Jones, who is about 9 seconds ahead of Alain Prost in the turbocharged Renault. And we are watching now Nelson Piquet in the white and blue car, with Reutemann dropping back, and it looks as though Reutemann is in trouble, but leading is Jones, second is Prost, third is Villeneuve, fourth is Giacomelli, fifth is Laffite. In 6th position now it is John Watson. In 7th it is Piquet. In 8th position it is Mario Andretti, and down to 9th position has gone Carlos Reutemann, and we are looking at the 3rd place man, Gilles Villeneuve. There is Prost, who is second.
It seems that Reutemann may have some gearbox trouble, which would explain why he was unable. That's Alan Jones cruising in his very commanding lead. There's Nelson Piquet, who now looks set to win the championship, although of course there's a long way to go in this race, but certainly positionally wise in the race he's in a very strong position now. Reutemann dropping back quite markedly, although if he is having a little bit of gearbox trouble, Reutemann can now drive for a finish, because there's every chance that Piquet can drop out, and there's no reason why he shouldn't cruise round and still possibly pick up a point or two. Should make him pretty hard to beat. Laffite, of course, struggling in the queue.
But, of course, Nelson Piquet has got to get at least 2 points to finish ahead of Carlos Reutemann, and he's not even 1 point, and he's not even in the points at the present moment, because he is in 7th position. He's got to get at least ahead of John Watson, and then ahead of Watson still there are Laffite, Giacomelli, Villeneuve, Prost, and the race leader Alan Jones. But Piquet is certainly on his way with a much enhanced chance of being the world champion of 1981, and in his sights now, as we look at him on his 20th lap out of 75, he has the red and white Marlboro MP4 of British Grand Prix winner John Watson. And by the way, Mario Andretti is not exactly hanging about. Having got past Carlos Reutemann, he's only just out of shot behind the 7th place man, number 5, Nelson Piquet from Brazil, who we are looking at. And they are lapping at about 104 miles an hour around this brand new circuit, compared with the 90 miles an hour that was predicted by some people before any cars had turned a wheel. There is Andretti on the left. Mark Schurer, by the way, has just gone into the pits out of our sight. And we're looking now at a bit of John Watson momentarily. Nelson Piquet 7th. On the right, Mario Andretti 8th. Down to 9th position, Carlos Reutemann. In 10th position is Nigel Mansell. And that is Hector Ribac, who is the Mexican driving in his last Grand Prix for Brabham. Now, Villeneuve, there we're back with the battle for 3rd position. Gilles Villeneuve in the Ferrari, still with Bruno Giacomelli right behind him in the Alfa Romeo. Laffite is still in 5th position. Watson is 6th. Piquet is 7th. They're starting to bunch. It is going to be a repetition of the Spanish Grand Prix. There is Laffite.
Yes, this is really the most frustrating thing in the world for a driver, to be following a car that's slow around the corners, such as the Ferrari, which is really a very poor chassis indeed, but they've got this particularly powerful engine. Ferrari have always built pretty good engines. They have never built very good chassis. They're not particularly good at building actual cars, but their engineering is always good in their power. But it's absolutely just horribly frustrating for a driver to follow that, because you're being held up round all the corners. You see Giacomelli not even getting closing up in the corner again, and then just watching it go away down the straight. When you get to the next corner, you're too far away to do anything about it. You catch it in the middle of the corner where you can't overtake, and it really drives him out. There goes Alan Jones, still cruising very comfortably on his way. He's got an 11-second lead over Alain Prost, and I should think he's taking it reasonably steadily, just driving very smoothly, hoping that for once his luck will change this season. He's been in the winning positions like this in 3 Grand Prix at least this year. We've been within sight of the finish and his car's let him down. Alain will be hoping that in what is probably his last Grand Prix, although it is rumoured that he's reconsidering his decision to retire. If it is anyway his last Grand Prix, he'll be hoping that he at last gets the luck that he certainly deserved this season and hasn't had.
Alan Jones is leading Alain Prost by 12 seconds, and Alain Prost, the 3 times Grand Prix winner of 1981, is a strong 20 seconds ahead of that stirring battle for third and the subsequent places, led by Gilles Villeneuve in the Ferrari. And this means, of course, there it is, Villeneuve, Giacomelli, Laffite, no change for third, fourth and fifth. John Watson still in 6th position, is he? And Nelson Piquet, let's see if we can, how far behind John Watson Nelson Piquet in 7th position is, because if Nelson Piquet can get up one more place and keep it, he is going to be the world champion of 1981.
Well, at the moment, Carlos Reutemann in 9th position is still heading for that championship. Nelson Piquet, as you've said, must finish in the points to overhaul him. He must get at least 1 point, and Laffite, of course, must finish 1st or 2nd.
And Laffite is on his way, because thank you, Barry Gill. While Barry was giving us that rundown on the championship situation, there is Derek Warwick. That's the first time we've seen him in the Toleman. That's the first ever Grand Prix shot of Derek Warwick in action. And Jacques Laffite has challenged and I think gone through and taken Bruno Giacomelli. We will soon, I hope, see. And Jacques Laffite in Patrick Tambay's practice car is now well and truly on his way, and he has. He's taken that place, whereas Nelson Piquet is still in 7th position. Now Jacques Laffite is up a place, and the race order with Alan Jones having just completed his 23rd lap. As you can see, he is 14 seconds, as near as makes no difference, ahead of Prost. Then Villeneuve is 3rd, and now Giacomelli is down to 5th position with Laffite in 4th place. Piquet is shown there as being in 6th position. So what has happened to John Watson? Oh, that's Villeneuve. Gilles Villeneuve. It's happened. The decay and the rot are setting in. Villeneuve off, and he's unlikely to get started again because he's on the sand.
Well, unfortunate for Villeneuve, but that will probably be very popular indeed with all the drivers who were stuck behind him. It looked, we didn't actually see what happened to Gilles, but it looked, I would imagine that the fairly evil handling Ferrari finally got too much of a handful. It's very, very hard work indeed to drive. He doesn't seem to have any apparent damage, but and maybe his engine was running because he was moving it then, but that helps Piquet. It also helps Laffite. Now, the big question now is, can Laffite do anything about catching his compatriot Alain Prost, and then set about Alan Jones? Because third, a distant third, which is where Jacques Laffite now lies, can be no good to him for the championship. Of course, it moves Piquet up into a potential point-scoring position. He only needs 1 point. He only has to equal Reutemann in order to win the championship, because he will have won more Grand Prix.
And on lap 25, Alan Jones is on lap 25. In 2nd place, it is still Alain Prost, but now the bung has been well and truly pulled out, because up in 3rd position now is Jacques Laffite, as we wait and look at Alan Jones going through for Alain Prost to finish his 24th lap, and he has done it. We're waiting as we watch Alan Jones to see the 3rd, 4th and 5th men coming through, and you will see them shortly. There they are. It's Laffite in 3rd position. Mario Andretti is up ahead of Giacomelli, and Giacomelli is, there they go. Laffite is 3rd. Mario Andretti Andretti and Giacomelli are fighting for 4th place, and there they are. And right behind them in 6th position is number 5, Nelson Piquet, in the World Championship point situation and challenging Andretti, who is now down to 5th place.
Well, that's pretty positive stuff from a pair of teammates there. Giacomelli standing no nonsense from his teammate and team leader Mario Andretti, shut the door on him in a fairly comprehensive style there. And that's all very well. Teammates do race each other. They're entitled to do so, but they're not usually very popular with their team if they touch each other and push each other off, and they weren't far away then. Laffite, of course, taking the benefit of the little fight going on by the two Alfa teammates behind him, which, of course, they're too busy fighting each other, allowing him to get a bit of a lead. But Laffite is, when he got by, or rather when Villeneuve went out, Laffite was 35 seconds behind Alan Jones, who we see there. That's just 38 seconds on that caption there. It's probably accurate. So we've got to see now if Laffite can do anything about that huge lead.
And can Nelson Piquet do anything about Giacomelli and Andretti in front of him? Laffite going through now in 3rd position. It is Giacomelli in 4th place, but we are looking at the race leader, Alan Jones, who is on his 26th lap, just over 1/3 distance. That is Mario Andretti, as I said earlier on, the oldest man in the race at 41 years of age. And there is Jacques Laffite, 3rd position. So, then Giacomelli 4th, Mario Andretti that we look at in 5th place. In 6th position is Nelson Piquet, right up with the ex-world champion Mario Andretti, as we look at the current world champion Alan Jones from Glenburn in the state of Victoria, Australia, to which he is returning shortly after driving in a special BBC TV rally sprint event next weekend. He's going to change from Formula 1 cars to rally cars and even metros in a saloon car race, but Alan won't be thinking about that very much at the moment, because what he's got to do now is keep going smoothly and consistently, not get too close to the apex of the corners and risk riding up on the curves and damage his suspension, not over-rev the engine, not change at the wrong time, but just drive a smooth and consistent race. He is 12 seconds ahead of Alain Prost, and those are the Brabham mechanics standing on the tyres, I hope not significantly. That is Nelson Piquet's team who keep his car, and when it's on the track, and it's not at the moment, Hector Ribac's in race order. But now, on lap 27, Alan Jones leads Alain Prost. 3rd is Jacques Laffite, trying to get up into a winning position in the hope of being the first ever French world champion. In 4th position, Bruno Giacomelli in the Alfa Romeo. In 5th position, Mario Andretti. In 6th position, it is Nelson Piquet. Down to 7th has gone John Watson. In 8th position, it is Carlos Reutemann. In 9th position, it is Nigel Mansell. In 10th place, it is Riccardo Patrese. Then lapped. And there's some...
It's Watson or Andretti. It's difficult to tell by the helmet. They've both got similar coloured helmets. There we...
A rather unfortunate caption.
It must have been Watson, because that's Andretti out there running now. So that looks like Watson has made error or gone off for some reason, is out of the running. A great shame, because he was running very well.
John Watson, if it was John Watson, and we think it was in 7th place out of the points order. We'll soon know, because as we look at Andretti 4th, Nelson Piquet in 5th position, it must have been Giacomelli. It's Giacomelli who's gone out, not John Watson, and John Watson is therefore back up into the points with Carlos Reutemann right behind him in 7th place. So very soon, the Argentinian Carlos Reutemann, like Nelson Piquet and Jacques Laffite, will be in a World Championship point-scoring situation if he can get one more place. Well, a very, very dramatic, very Jacques Laffite, the only one of the 2 Talbot-Matras left in the race, as we look now on lap 28 at the world champion Alan Jones, with this commanding lead of his. He's now on his way up the straight into the 2nd gear, turn 1, as we wait and you look at Alan Jones for Alain Prost to come through. the Frenchman is all by himself. Andrea de Cesaris obviously out of the race again, but I don't think this time, to be fair to him, it looks as though it's his fault, because it's obviously some sort of car trouble. And out of this race then, all Tambay, Chiva, Villeneuve, de Cesaris, Giacomelli. There is the sad Italian, because this is definitely his last race. His place is being taken, it is very strongly rumoured, and we believe to be confirmed next week, by Niki Lauda in the Marlborough MP4 making his comeback. But whatever way, Andrea de Cesaris is out of the Marlborough team in 1982. There is Reutemann, and that is Alan Jones leading, and he is now on lap 29 out of 75.
Well, Laffite is making no impression on the two leaders, so that looks as if Laffite's chances will depend now on some sort of a mishap happening up front, but of course any mishap that happens to the leaders will move Piquet and potentially Reutemann back up the order further into the points. So at the moment, Laffite's chances look a bit bleak. It rather looks as if he needs some form of miracle.
Well, Giacomelli spun. He's regained the circuit, actually. He's in 10th position. And there are now some 14 cars in the running out of the 24 who started. With Alan Jones on his way, 18 seconds ahead of Alain. Prost, who is 22 seconds ahead of Jacques Laffite, who is 3 seconds ahead of Mario Andretti, who is 2 seconds ahead of Nelson Piquet, who is 8 seconds ahead of John Watson. That is the first 6 on lap 29. And John Watson is being taken by Reutemann. Reutemann and John Watson are coming into the pits. So Reutemann now is up into 6th position and the points, and John Watson coming into the pits. And there he is. There is the man from Ulster who won the British Grand Prix, who was 3rd in the French Grand Prix and 2nd in the French Grand Prix. John Watson into the pits.
Well, John Watson's retirement, Murray, means that Piquet has 50 points at this moment, Reutemann would have 50 points, and Jacques Laffite 47. This championship battle is really hotting up.
And if Reutemann and Piquet tie, Nelson Piquet will win on a tie-break the World Championship, because he has more wins than Reutemann. Out of the pits and back with James.
Well, that's a little bit of a worrying sign for John Watson. He had to go in for a tyre change then. I know that they were running what looked... Oh, so there's Andretti, it looks like, with the rear wheel hanging off. So, who is this?
That's Mario Andretti for sure, with a slightly deranged Alfa Romeo and a slightly deranged Mario Andretti, I'm sure, because he wanted to do well, of course, in his home Grand Prix, having a look to see what's happened to what he would describe as that goddamn rear wheel, I'm sure, and he's getting no nourishment there. Food for thought, but not very much. Mario Andretti certainly out of the Caesars Palace Grand Prix of 1981.
He's looking at it rather quizzically. I suspect maybe that it fell off of its own accord. It may have been a suspension failure. There's Nigel Mansell having a catch. He's right up with Reutemann, now having a go.
Nigel Mansell is in 6th position. From Hall Green, Birmingham, Nigel Mansell, who is being strongly contested by several Formula One teams for a seat in 1982, with Colin Chapman determined to hang on to him. We look at the race leader, Alan Jones, and there is a change in the order then, because as Jones comes up to lap Riccardo Patrese in the Arrows in his last race for that team, because next year he drives for Brabham, the race order is Alan Jones leading Alain Prost. In 3rd position, it is Jacques Laffite. In 4th position, it is Nelson Piquet. In 5th position, and in the World Championship point scoring, Carlos Reutemann. And 6th is Nigel Mansell.
Yes, as I was saying earlier, before we were interrupted by Mario Andretti's little incident, Watson was running a fairly soft tyre compound, which they thought would probably be all right, but obviously it wasn't, because it's gone off, and which the tyre gets a little bit too hot if the compound's too soft. It's very hot out there. We're right in the hottest part of the day, and that, of course, it's well possible that Laffite is running the same tyres, so Laffite may be headed for some tyre trouble, or the possibility certainly exists.
And we look now at, on the right, Nelson Piquet, who is in 4th position. 3 points for 4th position in the World Championship. Bit of a wobbly camera in the helicopter looking down on the circuit. 2.2 miles long, 75 of these 14 turns per laps, and that is a race distance of 170 miles. And the race interest at the moment is particularly where Nigel Mansell is in relation to Carlos Reutemann, and into the pits comes Alain Prost. Alain Prost has come into the pits, and he is in 2nd position.
Yes, well, he's liable. This could well be a tyre change, because he is, in fact, running same Michelin tyres that Watson has been running. We haven't got a shot of him at the moment to see what he's doing, and from our commentary position, we can't actually see what they're doing to his car. But that certainly makes a different situation, because that moves Laffite up into 2nd place. And, of course, it's still no good with Piquet running in 3rd or 4th place.
And Nigel Mansell has moved ahead of Carlos Reutemann as out of the pits goes Alain Prost, and he's going to be in about 8th position when he exits the pits, I think, maybe even behind Carlos Reutemann. And the race order on lap 33 out of 75 then is in the lead Alan Jones, in 2nd position is Jacques Laffite, in 3rd position is Piquet, and 4th is Nigel Mansell ahead of 5th place man Carlos Reutemann, and then Giacomelli.
Well, it was indeed tyres that Alain Prost changed out there, and no, there's not necessarily any worries for Jones and Piquet. They're both running Goodyear tyres, but that is definitely a worry for Laffite. If Prost and Watson have both had to come in and change tyres, it's a pretty strong chance that Laffite is struggling. So we'll have a look at the clock to see how he's getting on. But very worrying indeed. Although he's got 2nd at the moment, he must be a little concerned.
14 cars still in the running, led by Alan Jones, who is on his 34th lap. Jacques Laffite sounding strong and looking good as the circuit is clear at this point. And the gap between Jacques Laffite, who is in 2nd position, and Nelson Piquet, who is in 3rd place with 4 points in the bag if he keeps going, is 9 seconds. Carlos Reutemann, and there is Prost. Prost, who has changed tyres, is therefore on fresh rubber, and as soon as he has got them warmed up, which won't take very long, because it is hot here at Las Vegas as I talk to you, and the race circuit surface will be very warm indeed now. There's plenty of rubber laid on it. The racing line is getting faster and faster. Alan Jones is holding his lead. Jacques Laffite is still 2nd. Piquet 3rd. And in 4th position, it is still Nigel Mansell.
Well, Murray, it's almost like reporting a general election. Piquet now has 52 points, Reutemann 51 and Laffite 49. Laffite has got to win to have a chance in the championship. Piquet at the moment, Murray, must be the favourite.
And there he is, the man from Brasilia, whose father was a senator in Brazil. The man, Nelson Piquet, there is the confirmation of the order. And the people leading the World Championship, Piquet and Reutemann and Laffite, are all in point-scoring situations. And Alain Prost is starting to climb up through the field again on those fresh new tyres of his, with Alan Jones now nearly 40 seconds as we look at the World Champion, seemingly on his way, and I must not tempt fate, but nevertheless, from Glenburn, Victoria, Australian Alan Jones, in allegedly his last Grand Prix, is on his way to achieving his ambition of winning it, as we look at the 3rd position man, Nelson Piquet, in this race of ever-changing fortunes, the Caesars Palace Grand Prix from Las Vegas. Piquet, first in the Argentine Grand Prix. That's Reutemann, and he's got Prost right behind him. Carlos Reutemann is in 4th position, 5th position, behind Nigel Mansell. So that means to say in 6th position will be Alain Prost, who's coming very, very close to Reutemann. And there's no question of that Renault not handling. Look at the way it goes, and look at the way he just surges past Carlos Reutemann. Race order now then, on lap 36, Jones leads Laffite second. Laffite with 6 World Championship points, and the only way that Laffite is going to win this championship is for him to win the race.
Well, I don't know if Reutemann's in a bit of trouble with his car. He seems to be running quite well, or whether he's just having one of his sulks again, because he let Andretti through right after he let Piquet through, and Reutemann is certainly no fighter, which is a pretty extraordinary position for somebody who's leading the World Championship. But Reutemann has this tendency, when things aren't absolutely right for him, to go into a decline and give up. And I have to say that the way Prost went past him in the Renault just now really didn't look like a man who was fighting for the World Championship, because he was still in the points, and there's no reason to let him by like that.
With Derek Warwick just disappearing out of the picture, there is John Watson, number 7, as we look down now at the Lotus 87 of Nigel Mansell, who is about to be taken and passed by Prost. And the way that Renault goes is absolutely incredible. Tremendous power, and it handles beautifully.
Yes, and bear in mind, of course, that Alain Prost has the advantage of having fresh tyres on his car. The racing tyres tend to work better when they're new, and he will have had a nice, cool, new set of tyres on, which will give him quite a lot more grip than the others, so it's not surprising to see him dashing through, but he's really having a bit of a charge, Alain Prost.
Yeah, Prost is in 4th position now, ahead of Nelson Piquet, ahead of Nigel Mansell, and on his way to try to catch Nelson Piquet. And if he does so, we're really going to see a fight, because Nelson will be in no mood to make way for anybody. He desperately needs every World Championship point he can get, although he's in a commanding position at the moment, being in 3rd position ahead of 6th place man Carlos Reutemann, who is, or was at the beginning of this race, leading the World Championship. And we look at the Ferrari there with Prost behind, and you can compare now the performance of Didier Pironi's Ferrari, number 28, the man who won the Belgian Grand Prix last year, and so very nearly won at Monaco and the British Grand Prix. Now let's see how the turbocharged Ferrari of Didier Pironi on the left, who is well out of contention actually, compares with Alain Prost. And the Renault handles much better on the corners, obviously. There is Reutemann down in that 6th position, with Nigel Mansell in 5th place, with Prost in 4th position, making his way up towards 3rd place man Nelson Piquet, who is a long way behind 2nd place man Jacques Laffite, who is out of the running as far as the 1st place is concerned, because Alan Jones has got it by a very considerable margin at the moment. This is lap 38. Now Pironi about to be lapped. There is Mansell, there is Reutemann. Now Reutemann seems to be closing up in 6th position on Nigel Mansell, who is 5th. Alan Jones starting now his 39th lap as Prost goes through and takes Pironi, and Pironi is in 11th position. In 10th place is Keke Rosberg. It's his first Grand Prix for some time. New tyres and new skirts have worked wonders for the Fittipaldi. In 9th position it is Michele Alboreto in the Tyrrell, and in 8th place it's John Watson. But the big charge at the moment is the one that we're looking at, with Alain Prost back in the running on fresh tyres, fresh new Michelin tyres, having had to come into the pits to change them. And we search across the circuits, looking first of all at Riccardo Patrese, now across the twists and turns, and we find Nelson Piquet in 3rd place. Now I wonder, as Alan Jones goes round, I should think it is turn 4. Yes, it looks to me as though he's up to turns 5 and 6. And that is about half a lap ahead of Nelson Piquet, with Alain Prost between them in the Renault. And
Well, Nelson Piquet will now be the man, of course, driving for a finish. He's got about 16 seconds lead on Reutemann, which is a very comfortable situation to be in. And if he can just run the race now without any sort of a drama, no mechanical problems or anything, then Piquet will win the championship and very comfortably. So he is now the man driving defensively, and Reutemann is the one with it all to do. And at the moment, he doesn't look as if he's giving it everything, although we do have a suspicion he may be in a bit of trouble with his car. So any remarks that I make about his driving should be borne in mind that he could be struggling with some sort of a gearbox problem, we think, possibly.
Well, James, whatever else has happened here, I think you have to agree that the £4 million gamble of the Caesars Palace people has paid off. It's a beautiful day. The track really seems to be providing good motor racing. We've got the 3 championship challengers in the first 6. We've had more than a score of changes of positions, and of course they're seeing Alan Jones put on a tremendous drive, which could be his swan song. The crowd looks good. We don't know how many of them have paid for their seats. There's no doubt at all that the casinos are full, and $250,000 is changing hands every hour in every casino. But for a first effort, for a brand new Grand Prix, James, don't you think they've done rather well?
They've exceeded everybody's expectations, Barry. People were quite sceptical about it. They didn't like the circuit laid out in the car park. They thought it would be too slow, too tight and twisty. And in fact, it's been a great success. The organisation has run extremely smoothly. There were worries that they wouldn't get a big crowd, but the grandstands appear, to my eye, to be pretty well full, which is 45,000. There is only seating here. There's no standing room here. You can't watch the race unless you've got a grandstand seat. So that looks like pretty much a capacity crowd. And it's been really a great success. There have been no heavy organisational problems, and I think all the drivers and teams are largely happy, which they're usually the first to criticise if anything's not going absolutely according to plan.
As we look at a very smooth driving Nelson Piquet in 3rd position, the leader Alan Jones is on lap 41 out of 75, seemingly on his way to his 2nd Grand Prix win of 1981, compared with the 6th that he had last year. In 2nd position, it is Jacques Laffite, not making any impression on Alan Jones. And Laffite is 12 seconds ahead of the man that we are looking at, Nelson Piquet, who is in 3rd position. Then in 4th place, charging up through the field, and the real interest at the present moment, 4th place then Alain Prost. 5th is still Nigel Mansell, because Carlos Reutemann, who had started to close on him, is dropping back a bit in 6th position. Giacomelli is in 7th place, and everybody beyond, as it were, Giacomelli has been lapped by Alan Jones. In 8th position, it is John Watson. In 9th place, it is Michele Alboreto. In 10th position, it is Didier Pironi. In 11th place is Keke Rosberg. And then a further lap back is Riccardo Patrese. Then another lap back, but still in the running, is Derek Warwick, who has completed in the Tolman 37 laps, is the last man running at the present moment. He is 13th out of the original 24-strong start. Alan Jones leading.
And just a reminder of the championship positions, Mary. Piquet has now got 52 points, Reutemann 50, and Laffite 49. And still this man, Piquet, looks like being world champion in only his 3rd full season of Grand Prix racing.
Alan Jones on lap 42, and the gap between Alan Jones and Nelson Piquet is 11.24 seconds between Alan Jones and Jacques Laffite. But now Alain Prost is really closing up on Piquet. Alain Prost in 4th position in the Renault, and hopefully we will soon get a look at the Brabham and the yellow and black Renault of Alain Prost, this very gritty young Frenchman, with the hotels of Las Vegas in the background, sands, dunes, the MGM Grand, the Barbary Coast, all these other famous names. There is the Barbary Coast at the top of the picture as race leader and world champion Alan Jones takes turn 1 on his way, surprise, surprise, to turn 2. And now he takes the right-hander, which is turn 3, the 2nd gear bend, accelerates up through 3rd and 4th gears to the right-hander at turn 4, now to the left-hander, the little short straight, and then another left-hander, and that's turns 5 and 6. And there is Nelson Piquet. Now look at Piquet and Prost. Piquet, who is in third position, and number 15, Alain Prost, who is in fourth place in the Renault and Gate.
Piquet, of course, won't mind at all whether Prost passes him or not, because he's not racing Prost. He's interested only in his gap to Carlos Reutemann. As long as Piquet's in the points, so he'll probably just let Prost go and continue to drive his race purely in a head-to-head situation against Carlos Reutemann.
And there is the answer. Piquet gives way and lets Alain Prost through up into third position as Alan Jones completes his 43rd lap ahead of them. And the race order then with Alain Prost having moved up a place. And what a gritty young charger this Frenchman is. The man from Saint-Chamond, who at one time wanted to be a professional footballer, in only his 25th Grand Prix, a junior kart champion of 1975, and there is Piquet, who himself started in karts in Brazil. And there is Prost, ex-Formula Renault champion of France and Europe, the Formula 3 champion of Europe of 1979. Then last year he drove for McLaren and got 5 World Championship points. And after a bit of acrimony, transferred to Renault with brilliant success. Prost pulling away. He won in France, he won in Holland, he won in Italy. And it's not inconceivable, the way he's going, that he could catch his fellow countryman, Jacques Laffite, who is in second position. And I know Barry Gilles is working away hard on this World Championship situation, because it's not inconceivable that if Jacques Laffite finishes ahead of and in second position, Piquet and Reutemann, he could still be the first ever world champion from France.
Well, Laffite has got 49 points now, Piquet only 51 and Reutemann 50. Laffite would have to win with something happen to Piquet and Reutemann. They couldn't be in the first 3, Murray, but that sudden move by Prost, I know James said that perhaps Nelson Piquet didn't mind him moving by, but it's really closed Reutemann up. And of course, if something happens to Mansell, we now have a situation where that battle is really on again. But Laffite has somehow got to get past that man Jones, and I don't think he's going to do it, Murray.
No, in fact, he's not catching Jones at all. Jones is totally in command of the race. Poor Alan Jones, we've rather sort of forgotten him, because he's out there doing a superb professional job, but he's all on his own. And meanwhile, Prost is very much on schedule to catch Laffite. He's less than 10 seconds behind. Let's have a look at that gap. He's 10 seconds behind Jacques Laffite. So with the way he's going, with new tyres on his car, or rather much fresher tyres than Laffite's on, it's not going to be too long before he catches him. And of course, that will really hurt Laffite's chances.
Well, I think our viewers in Australia can put another measure in the glass and put another steak on the barbecue and now start to pray, because there's your man, Alan Jones. He is on lap 45, coming up to 2/3 distance. That's 50 laps in this 75-lap race, totally in command. Nelson Piquet in fourth position. Jacques Laffite, who we have not seen very much of lately, is still in second place in the Talbot-Matra, and still in third position, having passed Nelson Piquet that we're looking at, is Alain Prost. Behind Piquet in fifth position, and on his way to get World Championship points again, is Nigel Mansell, who finished third in Belgium, who finished sixth in Spain, and has 5 World Championship points. But Piquet, with 48 points, now in fourth position, is running at a 51 points level at the present moment if he finishes where he is now, and 51 points would almost certainly give him the World Championship. Yes, it would give him the World Championship, because Carlos Reutemann is currently running at the 50 points level. But this course, which is very demanding physically for the drivers, is also demanding from a transmission point of view for the cars. 34 gear changes per lap, 2,550 gear changes in all. It's tough on the gearbox, it's tough on the half shafts, and of course it's tough on the drivers. And let us not forget, as we look at Nelson Piquet, that he is undoubtedly, despite his brave words this morning, in pain as a result of that zealously massaged back problem that he has. And Carlos Reutemann, as we look at Piquet, seems to be in trouble because he has just been passed, I'm sorry to have to tell you, out of your sight, but in mine. And he has been passed by Bruno Giacomelli, who is therefore up into 6th place. Carlos Reutemann is therefore out of the World Championship points at the moment in 7th place. And there you look across the circuit, and I can tell you, I hope they give us a shot of this. I'm sorry to keep talking out of picture, but there's some exciting things happening which you must know about, and this is that Alain Prost has just caught and taken, as our cameraman goes berserk to find him, Jacques Laffite in the Tourmat-Matra, and there you have the new 2nd place man, and see the way he is pulling away from Laffite. This could be the tyre problem that James was hypothesizing, because Laffite is definitely dropping back from Prost, who is now 2nd, and we look at Bernie Ecclestone.
Yes, well, I think, in fact, what's happened is that Prost, who was quicker than Laffite anyway early in the race, but now aided by having a newer set of tyres, is going quicker rather than Laffite actually going slower, because Laffite is holding his gap very much to Piquet and the people behind him. So I don't think Laffite is in any sort of trouble. I think it's just that Prost is really charging. He's having a fabulous season, Alain Prost. He's a real charging driver, and he's also very, very steady, makes very few mistakes. So Laffite looks to be really struggling now.
And that makes the point situation, James. Nelson Piquet 51, Carlos Reutemann 49, and Jacques Laffite 47. And Murray, can we just say a word about Derek Warwick, who's running 13th? Derek Warwick, of course, has tried all season to qualify for his first Grand Prix in the Toleman car. We hear in this gambling city that a rival team manager bet him £25,000 that he wouldn't do it. Well, he did it yesterday. He's in the race. He's 13th. And for Derek Warwick, Murray, it could be a very lucky 13th indeed.
Well, I think Nelson Piquet has got all the muscles in working order again, because he is starting a charge, and Piquet in 4th position is only 3.8 seconds behind the new 3rd place man, Jacques Laffite, who has been displaced by Alain Prost. If you find it confusing, listen to this. You are looking at the leader, number 1, appropriately, Alan Jones. Behind him, the new 2nd place man on lap 49 out of 75 is Alain Prost. In 3rd position, it is Jacques Laffite in the Tourmat-Matra, being gained on rapidly by the 4th place man Nelson Piquet, who is pulling away from 5th place man Nigel Mansell, and there is a new 6th place man since you last saw him, Bruno Giacomelli. In 7th position is Carlos Reutemann. 8th is John Watson, who has been lapped. 9th, and we are still looking at Alan Jones, is Michele Alboreto. In 10th position, it is Didier Pironi in the Ferrari. 11th is Keke Rosberg in the Fittipaldi. In 12th position, it is Riccardo Patrese. And Derek Warwick in 13th place is in the running, albeit 3 laps behind the race leader, Alan Jones. Now, there's Piquet. Let's look ahead and see how far Jacques Laffite is. There is the answer. There's Laffite in the blue Tourmat-Matra, and we do a quick double shuffle to the left to lose Nelson Piquet, and there he is. We're back with him. Now, there's Laffite. There is Piquet. This is the battle for 3rd position.
Yes, I think I was wrong what I said just now. Laffite does seem to be going backwards now, and maybe his tyres are taking their toll. Remember, he's on the Michelin tyres. We've already seen a couple of stops by Prost and Watson to change. The compounds just choosing it a little bit too soft, and of course Piquet's on the Goodyears, so and so far there's been no sign of Goodyears having any sort of trouble in the race.
We may be seeing a very significant event shortly, because as we look at Nelson Piquet, who is in 4th position, I can tell you that with him gaining on the 3rd place man, Alan Jones, the race leader, is almost up to his teammate Carlos Reutemann, who is in 7th place. and will shortly be lapped by Alan Jones. And we certainly did not expect that to happen after practice, which Carlos Reutemann dominated, being fastest in both the time sessions. Piquet chases Laffite, getting closer and closer all the time, on his way to challenge for second place. And in the background there was Nigel Mansell, who, although he has been lapped, is still in fifth position. Laffite second, Ligier-Matra V12. Piquet third, Brabham Cosworth V8. Ford engine, Cosworth developed and designed. And a nod of the head from Jacques Laffite, who was most unhappy with his practice car, and most unhappy too that his fired teammate Patrick Tambay had actually been faster and much faster than him in practice. And there it is, there is Alan Jones, the world champion from Glenburn, passing the man that we thought would well win the world championship this year, his teammate Carlos Reutemann. Well, Jones won in the Argentine this year. Carlos Reutemann won the non-championship event. And there is Piquet up into second place. Nelson Piquet then. Jacques Laffite must surely be in trouble. Jacques Laffite down to third position, having been lapped by Nelson Piquet. So Jones leading, Prost still in second place, of course. Jacques Laffite down to fourth position. My apologies, because Nelson Piquet is now up into third, and there is the confirmation. Piquet in third position, not second. And Alan Jones is now some 50 seconds ahead of Alain Prost, and Jones is on his 52nd lap.
Well, Laffite seems to be holding on all right. He's fighting back, and I think even if he is in a bit of tyre trouble, that the tyres aren't quite giving the grip that they were at the start of the race, I think he'll probably, if he possibly can, elect to stay out on the track now and not go in and change his tyres, so he's going to stay there. I just pray for a miracle that the leaders all break down and hand him the race on the plate, because that's now his only chance. The championship is to try and pick up the pieces if anything unfortunate happens to the others.
And that, of course, Murray, means that Nelson Piquet has a 3-point lead in the championship, 52 points, Reutemann 49, and Jacques Laffite now dropping back to 46.
Jacques Laffite dropping back in the points, yes, but Jacques Laffite fighting back in the race, and Nigel Mansell with him. Nigel Mansell goes through. Oh, great, wonderful. Nigel Mansell in the Lotus then is up into fourth position. Mansell is now chasing. There he is. Now let's get a good look, we hope, at the man from Hall Green, Birmingham, Nigel Mansell in the Lotus, number 12. This is only his first full season of Grand Prix racing. He has fought his way past Jacques Laffite, and he's now on his way after Nelson Piquet, both on the same lap, incidentally, because although everybody up to Giacomelli has been lapped now, including Carlos Reutemann by Alan Jones, the first 6 are still on the same lap, and that same lap is the 53rd lap at the present. No, the 52nd. Alan Jones is actually on his 53rd lap, and the interest is very much the fight of Nigel Mansell for third position. Can he get up to? Can he catch? Can he pass? As we watch the race leader again, a constant reference point, as it has been ever since, ever since he took the lead on the very first corner. Alan Jones has commanded all the time, and he's now ahead of Alain Prost, then Nelson Piquet in third position, Nigel Mansell in fourth place, down to fifth goes Jacques Laffite, ahead of the sixth and last man not to be lapped, Bruno Giacomelli in the Alfa Romeo. Alan Jones. And Mansell is ahead of Piquet. And Laffite is coming into the pits. Jacques Laffite, watch the pit road there, because Jacques Laffite is in trouble and is into the pits. And now Nigel Mansell is up into third position ahead of Nelson Piquet as we look at Carlos Reutemann passing Didier Pironi passing Reutemann, and there is the previous second place man, Jacques Laffite, who at the beginning of this race was very much in contention for the World Championship, and it looks as though it's the tyre problem, the bogey.
Yes, and unfortunately Jacques must have tried to hold on. He must have realised for a while that his tyres weren't going to make the distance, and unfortunately he's timed that stop as just about as badly as he could, because if you're going to stop, put fresh tyres on, you want them on for as long as possible, therefore you've got to make an early decision. But there was, of course, Piquet and Jones are on a different type of tyre, so they shouldn't suffer any tyre problems. There's been no hint of it for the Goodyear runners this time, but as I say, Laffite's got... I suppose he was staying out there to do just to hope that he could hold on and finish the race, but of course he's now lost too much ground and is right out of contention.
Well, there is Pironi on the right in the very distinctive Scarlet Ferrari, only one of them in the race at the moment, with Gilles Villeneuve having spun out, and he's coming up to now and passing the Williams with very little trouble at all, as Alain Jones lets him through. And now, where is Nigel Mansell in relation to Alain Prost and in relation, for that matter, to Nelson Piquet? And how was it that Nigel Mansell managed to get through so convincingly up into third position when Piquet was very definitely pressing on? So on lap 54, Alain Jones is leading Alain Prost, and in third position it is Nigel Mansell with Nelson Piquet fourth, and Giacomelli is in fifth position. Still some way to go, though.
Yes, some way to go indeed. Absolutely fascinating race, I'm sure you'll agree. And
Alain Jones ha condotto la corsa fin dall'inizio, è sempre al comando con 45 secondi di vantaggio su Prost, ma sembra in quest'ultima fase della gara avere qualche difficoltà di macchina. Mansell è terzo a 1.02, è indicato da Piquet quarto a 1.04, mentre Giacomelli quinto a 1.07 si sta a sua volta avvicinando, eccolo nelle immagini, decisamente al brasiliano. Mario. Basta anche un punto solo, Mario, ti ricordo che a Nelson Piquet basta anche di conquistare un solo punto, perché Giacomelli ha scavalcato, come dicevamo, gli basterebbe un solo punto, perché in base al regolamento Nelson ha vinto 3 gare, esattamente quella in Argentina, quella di Imola e il Gran Premio di Germania, mentre invece Carlos Reutemann ne ha vinte 2 sole, cioè quella in Brasile e in Belgio.
thank you. When we left the race on lap 54 of 75, Alain Jones was out front. But of those in contention for this year's World Championship, Nelson Piquet was 4th and Carlos Reutemann 6th. And Jacques Laffite was out of the points at that particular time, which makes Piquet a hot favourite to become this year's World Champion. Let's rejoin the race now in Las Vegas with Murray Walker.
Piquet is still hot favourite for the World Championship, but he's dropping back because now on lap 60 out of 75, there is the leader, number 1, Alain Jones. In second position, some 40 seconds behind him, as we look at Carlos Reutemann. In second place, it's Alain Prost. In third position and charging up through the field is Bruno Giacomelli, who has displaced Nigel Mansell from third position. So down to fourth position goes Mansell, but now Nelson Piquet is in fifth position, slipping down through the field, and there is Prost in second place. And in sixth position is Carlos Reutemann. And how does that affect the World Championship standards, Barry Gilles?
Well, Giacomelli pushing Piquet to fifth and Laffite letting Reutemann to sixth means that these two drivers, Murray, are absolutely equal on points with 50 points each. But of course, that man Nelson Piquet has won more races this season than Carlos Reutemann, and he would win a tiebreak.
Well, it's bash on Bruno Giacomelli, who is catching the eyes at the present moment, because the Italian in the Alfa Romeo, the man from Milan, 29 years old, as we watch Alan Jones now on his 60th lap. He has only got 15 laps to go, including the one that he is on. 15 laps at something like about 33 miles or so around this 2.26 mile circuit. Jones has led, dominated, has been in absolutely superb, overwhelmingly commanding form ever since the race began. It would be less than justice if he did not win his second race, World Championship race of the year.
Well, John Watson, Murray, has come into the picture. He's overtaken Reutemann, so pushed Reutemann out of the points, which means that tie-break could be academic. Watson storming through the field, Murray.
Right, let us check on the positions on lap 61 out of 75. Alan Jones leads by some 40 seconds from Frenchman Alain Prost in the turbocharged Renault. Coming up fast, very fast indeed, Bruno Giacomelli in third place, pulling away from fourth place man Nigel Mansell. Indeed, as I talk to you, the gap between third place man Giacomelli and fourth place man Mansell is some 5 seconds. In fifth position, very much in the points, 2 points, that's all he needs for the World Championship, Nelson Piquet. The new sixth place man in the points, John Watson in the Marlboro MP4, in spite of his chest infection and flu. And in seventh position, out of the points, Carlos Reutemann. There is the race leader.
Well, the field's all got rather spread out now. It's all become a little bit anticlimactic for the time being. But of course,